so glad you are here. This is PopCon, a salute to all pop culture.
But mostly the 80s.
Thank you, Sam Eagle. If you schedule your holiday around the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Victor, and I am joined by Senior Creative Director at Universal Creative, Jason Surrell.
Thank you, everyone. Senior, that means I eat for half price as long as I eat after 4 at select locations.
Lucky you. Is that what happens when you get these kind of
That's
promotions?
all that means. Yep.
I'm going for this. I'm going to get these kind of jobs. Well, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to be here.
You know, when I say things like Senior Creative Director, it sounds pretty lofty. I know you were a former Disney Imagineer, but tell me what it is you do now.
Well, a creative director is to theme parks what a film director is to the movies. So you're basically just literally directing the creative of whatever the project happens to be. So you're the chief vision keeper, cheerleader, conductor of the orchestra, but it's basically what a film director is too.
I feel like there's a lot more to go into. There you go. We're already starting, folks. We're already starting. If you can look behind me, you can see it's Halloween. This is the start of PopCon's spooky season, all the way through December 29th. We're going to have some spooky content. I mean, I'm usually even dressed better, but we've got this theme going on because it's Halloween time. So this show may not be directly about what Jason does, but I think he's a...
It's not?
No, sorry. Why are you leaving?
Yeah,
I'm out of here.
Okay.
What did your agent
get my
you?
publicist?
But I think you're a perfect candidate. Credentials are perfect for the topic we've got. And today's topic is the fun in fear. So the fun of being afraid. So we will be right back with that.
Creep show will grab you, grow on you, and give you the creeps.
No, this is going to be an entirely new experience.
Creep show, the most fun you'll ever have being scared.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for staying with us. This is PopCon Live. Today we're talking about the fun in fear. Now, just to remind everybody that PopCon Live is just an alternate format of the PopCon YouTube channel. So I still got my solo show, but this is a way I can take a guest and dive deep into the thing that, those things that the masses have gotten emotionally connected to and live in our pop consciousness, like being afraid. Are you afraid of anything?
Everything.
Everything. Great.
Well, I have an anxiety disorder, so I'm literally afraid of everything. No.
Cameras, microphones.
You, Frank,
oh my God! Sorry.
This whiskey, spirits.
I will try to not be fearful looking at my phone.
But to answer the question seriously, because this goes back to my childhood and the kind of scary content that I gravitated to, and it really is ghosts. I mean, to this day, my favorite horror films are supernatural horror films. My favorite books are all ghost stories, and I've had experiences myself.
Okay.
And I think the reason for that is it's something that we don't understand. We think we might, but there are different interpretations of what ghosts are.
Yeah.
But unlike Godzilla rising from the ocean, not that that couldn't happen, and I'm holding out hope that it will. But ghosts
could solve a lot of our problems.
Yeah, exactly. Ghosts seem more accessible, almost. Like, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, in your own house, in a hotel, on a cruise ship. I've had experiences in all of those.
That is such a great point, and I am glad. I just like you more now because you said ghosts. A lot of people, their fear may be very, not silly. Nothing is silly about someone's fear, but when you talk about the physical thing, like you said, Godzilla, but a creature, I think ghosts do kind of transcend everything.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do say or have had an instance where they can't explain it, and it's just more scary to them.
Yeah, and I found that it is not unlike the movies. When I've had those moments, my knee-jerk reaction is, in fact, oh, well, I'm sure it was just this.
Try to justify or try to figure it out.
You automatically gravitate to the rational explanation, but if you're open to that sort of thing, like I am and most of my friends are, that quickly pivots to, well, no, wait a minute. I think that may have been something. And I always, in my experience, I've gotten the same feeling when I feel like that veil between worlds has been pierced in some way.
So it is coming to that time of year where that's what has always been said to be happened. The veil between the dead and the living thins, and those spirits can come out. When you were a kid, did you love Halloween?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What kind of things did you dress up as? You like to trick or treat?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Dracula. I always gravitated to the movie monsters because I was a movie kid.
Yeah.
And so even today, everything I do tends to gravitate to that direction. I never understood the kids. I'm going as a hobo.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
Oh,
why?
that's funny because
That
I
makes
was
no
about
sense.
to agree to you because I was the same. I did vampire a lot,
Yeah.
but there were occasions I did hobo, and maybe just because we were poor. It was an easy one to do.
And now I'm the jerk.
Not at all, because I wanted to be scary, and I still today. I don't understand why people are always trying to be like the funny, cutesy stuff. And of course, because my brain was Halloween is scary, it's meant to be scary.
Yeah.
But I won a contest as a Rubik's Cube. So one of my famous fifth grade, I was a Rubik's Cube. It wasn't scary, but I won for it, and thank you, Mom. So, but yeah, I always wanted it to be a scary costume because I thought it was fun. It was fun at that time of year to be scary.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as adults growing up, when we were past trick-or-treating time, we may have given candy out. Did you give candy to kids too for a while when you stopped trick-or-treating?
Yes, and then there was one year famously when it was during my transition from VHS to DVD.
Yeah.
And my wife at the time was getting kind of fed up with just all of this accumulated crap in the house. So one Halloween night, maybe I'd had a cocktail. Who knows? There's no shame in it. Bottoms up. I started handing out some of the VHSs that either would have gone to the library or into the trash, and I would get the okay from the parents. And, there was one point I distinctly remember handing out Young Frankenstein because I had just gotten the special edition DVD, and this kid goes tearing across my lawn into the darkness, going, "Mom, we got videos!"
He probably called, tons of kids probably said, we're going to that house.
Exactly.
At least, I love that you said it got the okay from the parents. At least we're giving Debbie Does Dallas.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
you're giving,
Yes, that
appropriate
was,
and fun,
yes,
kind of
yes.
stuff. I love that because when we got apples, we threw them.
Yeah.
If I got a tape, I might watch it.
Yeah,
That was a
exactly.
great
Who knows?
one.
I probably created a Mel Brooks fan then.
That's nice. That's everyone needs.
So
we
I've
all
done-
need more
I've
Mel
done
Brooks
my
fans.
duty. Yeah.
When I stopped trick or treating, I remember I gave the candy out, but I loved to scare them. I had a dead body on a rope, and I would drop it from the roof, trying to terrorize kids. You're trying to get VHS.
Now I would be afraid of indignance.
No,
How dare
of
you
course-
frighten
no.
my child? And then we're canceled.
It's a different world.
Yes.
Gonna cancel that house.
Yeah. Not in the innocent Lisa Bonet sense. It's
Innocent
a
Lisa
it's a-
Bonet. They don't go in the same
I thought
sentence.
you said it's a different world.
Oh, good,
I was
good
doing
catch.
damn it.
That was a good catch, though. It was
That
good.
was-
He's good.
yeah.
He's funny, guys.
It's
He's
mostly
really
about
funny.
the 80s.
You did say movies, though. So when it was a point where you stopped giving candy as well, and you're to a certain age where you're late teens, you're going in your 20s, if there wasn't a costume party to go to,
Yeah.
you might just do a horror movie.
Yeah,
you
you
kind of
just-
just oh, it's time to watch horror movies,
Yeah, then
right?
it became about the programming. And
Yeah.
for me, Halloween has always been every bit as ritualistic as Christmas. You mentioned the Great Pumpkin.
Yeah.
So there aren't as many specials as there are for Christmas.
You can find them different ways now. I wish there was more network TV, but we all know that network TV is
Yeah.
it's a way of the dinosaur. It's there, but
Yeah.
I make sure to watch The Great Pumpkin. I make sure to watch Legend of Sleepy Hollow. I make sure to watch some movie. What about you? What are your go-tos every season?
It's the Halloween series, The Omen, The Exorcist, The Shining, Salem's Lot, the original miniseries. Great
Yeah.
Pumpkin.
Oh, Salem's Lot. What a great knocking at that window.
Oh,
So
I-
eerie.
that-
Scares the hell out of me.
The original
Yes.
miniseries, in many ways, for me, has never been topped, and I think it has a lot to do when I first saw it. But to this day, for example, just in terms of the depiction of vampires, to me, it doesn't get any scarier
Than the
than
Master?
Barlow and the two Glick boys from
Oh,
Salem.
yeah.
Absolutely horrifying.
I'm tormented by the master coming in the window and growing out of his
Oh,
cave
yeah,
and
yeah,
tormenting
yeah.
the kid. I was like, I'm going to show that, so it's going to be up here, right here. Halloween, you mentioned that. Halloween is a perennial favorite, of course. I love that original for its low gore, but awesome takeaway. Now, you told me that you saw Halloween Kills the other night, did you?
Yes, I did. Yes, I
Great.
did.
So, can I get a review out of you later in the show?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, great. Did you like it?
I liked it, didn't love it.
Okay, we're going to
And-
hear a review
yeah.
from him about Halloween Kills. Haven't
Yeah.
seen it yet, and a big Halloween fan. So that's awesome. So right now we're going to do something, a little test your horror knowledge. You ready for this?
Oh, no, I hope so.
All right,
I
we're
wanna
going to
embarrass
test your...
myself.
You won't. It sounds like you know your stuff. So I'm going to play a couple of theme songs from some classic horror movies. When I say classic, I'm not talking the ones on your shirt. Horror movie is like...
This is a Canadian television show, by the way. The Hilarious House of Frightenstein, which we grew up with in the Northeast.
I have a DVD of that.
Really? Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
Because a friend of mine from Canada gave it to me and said, watch this. Guess what? I never watched it. Sorry, Susan. I have it, though.
I don't know you, Susan, but I too will apologize.
All I heard was I saw Frankenstein real quickly, and I was like, "Oh, it's Frankenstein."
And
but
you
it's not.
judged. You judged. You
I
made
ju-
a snap
I
judgment
actually
based on
believed-
appearance.
I believed you were
expected
fantastic.
More. I
Oh.
expected more.
Listen, I'm saying I saw it and I thought you were better. So, yeah, I'm going to play a few theme songs to some classic horror slashers. You should know these.
I should.
Actually, just horror movies, not slasher. You know, a horror movie to me is like EDM, electric dance music, where there's a bunch of genres underneath. Because there's the thriller, there's the suspense, there's the slasher, and there is the classic. So, play along at home. The minute you know what this is, just go ahead and yell it out. You ready?
Okay, very tense. Oh, Jason, Friday the 13th.
Very nice. Friday the 13th. Did you get that at
It
home?
was not the greatest interpretation of it, but is that from the actual soundtrack or is it like a knockoff?
I'm trying to remember where I got it.
Okay.
I feel like it's from the original. I think I was getting all that, but we'll see.
Come on. You know it's embarrassing.
Say it out loud.
The Exorcist.
All right. Did you guys get that at
Tubular
home?
Bells, which they just kind of pulled out.
Yes.
And it just happened to
I mean,
work.
Tubular Bells wasn't like, would you make something scary for us? It
Yeah.
worked.
Yeah, it's not like Mike Oldfield goes, "Here you go, problem solved."
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
It was an existing piece.
All right. These are going to be easy for you. I know that, but I'm giving it a chance to get us in the mood.
Bernie Herman. I like calling him Bernie.
Oh,
Because like if you watch the movie Hitchcock with Anthony Hopkins as Alfred Hitchcock, they call him Bernie, which I find hysterical because he's like a New Yorker. You think he's going to be some austere German composer, Bernard Herrmann.
I love that you brought up Bernie because that's fascinating about the credits of Psycho.
Yeah.
Because Bernard Herrmann gets some top billing, and composers don't do that. They don't get that. So that was pretty cool.
And that's
about
an
it.
anxiety. When those main titles of Psycho kick in, it's like an anxiety attack. Right? Dun, dun,
Yeah, you're like,
dun,
what am I
dun,
getting
dun,
into?
dun,
Whoa!
dun, dun, and you're like, whoa!
What's going
We're
on?
not easing into it.
No, that's good. All right, last one. No. Yeah, what's the last one? It is. And you're going to get it. Of course. Okay. Yell it out, though, for everybody.
Halloween.
Everybody knows. All right, so it was just
The night
simple. It
he
was full.
came home.
Ooh. And then there was Halloween 2.
Synthesized.
But their tagline was simply more of the night. It was the stupidest tagline. It was like,
A little- right.
let's have this just an hour later.
It's not even like later that same night he came home.
That would have been a great way to begin it.
Right. It's
More
like-
of the night he came home.
Right.
Jamie Lee is wearing a wig in that, by the way. It was like 3 years later
Yes,
to do
yeah,
a
it
half
was.
hour later.
Yeah, exactly. And
30 years later, 30 minutes. Well, awesome. Nice job,
now
of
it's
course.
invalidated.
There's some great ones. I was actually going to use Scream because to me, the slasher film, which is heyday, is mid 70s to late 80s. Now, that's its heyday. They did start making slashers again, but they're nothing like the same. They're not.
No.
Like, do you know what's overall kind of considered the first slasher?
Well, I mean,
Because Psycho lays the groundwork, which
Psycho
is
lays the
1960.
groundwork. I mean, it's.
There's a couple great ones there in the 70s.
I think that answer changes depending on who you talk to, because a lot of
It
people
does.
would go with Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Which is 74, I think.
Yeah, and I don't know when The Hills Have Eyes or the what was it, the Last House on the Left.
Last House on the Left is often called one of the first
Yeah,
slashers. Because slashers can't just be a murder.
Right.
It has to be kill, kill,
yeah,
kill.
that's-
And it has to be, they
that's the
often
point.
say it has to be human as well.
Yeah.
Not a supernatural, although Jason and Freddy are a little supernatural.
Well,
they
so
still
what
are
is
human.
your
Black
answer?
Christmas.
Oh,
But
okay.
I often think I combine it with the final girl syndrome. The final
Yeah.
girl, because Jess, the final girl in Black Christmas, it holds all those tropes pretty solid. But still, through the 80s. Now, you get Friday the 13th in the late 70s through the first Friday Nightmare, and you have the serial killer that ends up being a hero. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's funny because you see it most with Freddy, and it's almost like the Terminator syndrome, where it's almost like at one point the filmmakers said, oh crap, this character that people aren't supposed to like has become so popular that, like in the case of the Terminator, they flipped the format and
Yeah.
actually made him the protagonist. In the case of the slasher, at least in Freddy's case, it wasn't that he was any less dangerous,
Right.
but they made him into more of a comedian
Yeah.
and kind of an affable figure as he's disemboweling you. Because if you go back to the first Nightmare on Elm Street film, it is terrifying.
He's kept in the dark
and
a lot more.
Freddy is terrifying, and he doesn't become the jokester
No.
that he does in later installments. And
Once again, foolish friends, Freddy Krueger is on your phone. Dial this number now. I've got some tales to tell. Freddy's favorite bedtime stories. Dead time stories. All brand new, straight from my boiler room to your home. It's Freddy Krueger on your phone. So dial this number now if you dare. Tell him Freddy sent you.
And then in the case of something like Jason, and I think this happened with the Halloween films as well, it's not that he became a jokester by any means, but everything became so larger than life and cartoonish.
We're waiting for the next big thing they do.
Yeah, and even as a kid and a teenager, even though I was a horror kid, a monster kid, I started to lose interest even then, because it was almost like I got snobby about it, where I'm like, well, now it's just silly.
Yeah.
And I think that's why to this day I gravitate, as a lot of people does, everyone does, to the first Halloween and to Psycho and to the...
Even the first Friday the 13th,
even
in its entirety, is well done for what
well
it was.
done, and it did not... And
It's
then,
not even...
And then even part two, and the funny thing is, by the time you get to the thing that's associated with Jason, the hockey mask, that's where it was already off the rails.
Off the rails. So
and,
number 3 gets a
just
hockey
silly.
mask, and you're going, this is the one with like the punk motorcyclist.
Yeah,
it's
and
not good. And you're
yeah.
like, and then that's the hockey mask.
Yeah.
But they took a turn with, I think, 4, 5, and 6.
Then
it tried to improve.
But it gets progressively more over the top and sillier. And I remember as a teenager, it was already like I was a film snob and just was like, I want more.
Well, that's funny because,
Yeah.
like you said, what your job is today and what you've gone through creatively in your career, you can look back at that almost and go, I see it, and it's not worthy after
and
it's
I
initial.
realize now that I realized it then.
Which is smarter,
So,
smarter than most teens.
The first R-rated film I saw in the theater was actually in the summer of '81. I was 11. And because of Halloween, which I had seen on VHS at a friend's house covertly, I had become a John Carpenter disciple even that early. So I talked my dad into seeing Escape from New York, which as R-rated films go was relatively benign.
Right.
But then the second R-rated film I saw in the theater was Halloween 2. And even then I was like, I like it, but now I'm getting hypodermics in people's eyes and hammers buried in people's heads.
Because it's sad, Halloween 2 is not a great...
Yeah,
it's not a great sequel.
No,
you just want to stop there.
And Halloween is it's even though it's sometimes credited to your earlier question as being the first slasher movie for people that just generalize and don't take a deeper dive, but it really is more of a suspense thriller. There's very little blood, not a ton of violence. And
there's a lot of people getting capped, but they're not.
Yeah,
But it's not.
There is death.
There's a lot of death. Go see it.
People don't make it. You'll love it. It's great.
I love that you said that though people do refer to it as the first slasher, but that again, Michael Myers, Jason, and Freddy.
Yeah,
they're looking at it. Yeah. They're looking at it very shallow.
They're like the unholy trinity of slashers.
But I like how you explained why they not became heroes, but became pop icons. When some earlier slashers, which Last House on the Left is disgusting.
Yeah, you're not rooting for
You're
anybody.
not rooting for anyone in that. That's complete.
Although I will say, the other
Rooting
night
for the girl.
when I saw Halloween Kills, when not to give anything away, but when there is resistance to Michael and he takes some shots, some blows, the audience started cheering, and my first thought was, finally, the proper emotional response.
Right.
Because, you'll get, in horror films a lot today, you'll get nervous laughter or people almost don't know how to react. I first saw that I'll never forget, in 1998, Warner Brothers had, I don't remember what the anniversary of the studio was, but they had a film festival that was all over the country, and they picked 10 movies from each decade, and you could see it in the theater.
Nice.
So I finally got to see The Exorcist on the big screen. And people were laughing at the most horrific things or at the most inappropriate times.
That wasn't the original reaction.
And I realized it was because they didn't know how to react. It was unsettling them.
Oh.
So it may have been inappropriate laughter, but it was nervous laughter because there were things that were done in The Exorcist that you couldn't get away with today.
We often talk about that here on Popcorn Live, but the things that we've done in the past, which were groundbreaking, but you could not see. And it's a little sad. There's a little sadness to it. Exorcist. On a side note, I love to watch reaction videos on YouTube where young people, and I am talking even millennials and younger, watching classic horror movies like The Exorcist. I love to see their response. And they're shocked. And I love it. And some of them are really being smart about it and trying to examine what was so different and exciting about it. And they will remark that it's different, that they don't see that today, which is great. We're going to bend away a little bit and get away from this, because we started about the fun of being afraid, and we talked about how, we're young and we're trick-or-treating. We get to try and scare kids when we're a little too old for trick-or-treating. We're watching the horror movies. But then there was this thing where in my town, it was still early 80s, we had a haunted house come in. One haunted house. I was still too young to go to it, but it fascinated me because my teenage brothers and sisters went, And all I could envision it was a fun house at a carnival without the ride track.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to expect. I think maybe I'd seen something on TV about haunted houses, but those singular seasonal attractions was like the next step for me. The adults weren't, absconding Halloween from the children. There's tons for them, but there was something else that they could do.
Yeah.
And there's still seasonal ones. There are some great permanent haunted houses out there. I know that too. But there is the seasonal, and then there's the giant ones. What is your thought on all of these haunted attractions that have come into popularity since somewhere in the mid-late 80s?
I think it's just indicative of the fact that no matter what your age is, you want to have ways to celebrate and mark the season.
Yeah.
And haunted attractions, as a veteran of Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios, which is, and I know I'm biased, but it is the premier Halloween event in the country, if not the world. But there's also that grand tradition of the JC's haunted house, the local haunted house. And I grew up in Cleveland, the Versailles of the Midwest, as we like to call it. And that was when I had my first exposure to local attractions, and they terrified me because I probably went too young. And I think that was
Could be, but they were also very new to us.
Yeah,
this experience was new at the time.
Absolutely, and
they're now commonplace.
But in the Cleveland area, there was the Hudson Haunted House, which was a town an hour or so away, and that had garnered a reputation as being, that's the really bad one, that's the intense one. And I'll never forget, my dad reluctantly took me one time. We got into the first scene, and it was elaborate. I mean, I don't today. Knowing what I know, they obviously did it in a multi-story building, but you went in and it was like almost like a cave-like room, and there was a giant hole in the floor, and an actor dressed up as the devil was yelling, "Welcome to hell," and these people were chanting.
There's a young person.
And I look at my dad, I go, and I just flipped. I went out, I can't do it. And then my dad just leans in mid-scare as this actor is trying to do something, and he goes, "How do I get him out of here?" And this guy who was probably a teenager,
playing Satan?
Yeah, but he literally goes, "That bad, huh?" And then they took me out the chicken exit. My dad's like,
awesome.
"We're waiting a couple years. You talked me into this one, and I told you."
I should have known.